Dobar dan, buongiorno, bonjour, guten Morgen, allegra. So when you start like this, you can already feel that, okay, someone from Switzerland is speaking. Because we have 4 official languages, and it's not by law that we are obliged to greet in the 4 languages, but from time to time we do it. And this is also a little bit also the topic of my presentation. I'm really impressed about the beauty and the really facilities that you have. It's fantastic that you could train and study also with this facility, and honored to be here. Thank you to the dean, the professor, and thank you students to come and to listen, but also to engage with me. You know, even during the presentation, if you have questions, so just raise your hand and we will have an exchange. You can also come near, you know, I will not bite, don't worry. The idea was to speak a little bit about political engineering. You know what? Because I'm an engineer. It might come a little bit of surprise to you because the ambassador, diplomats study international relations or others. I'm a forestry engineer, and then, you know, life makes a little bit turns, and then it turned out that at some point I became a diplomat, but I'm still an engineer in the heart. So when I talk about politics also, I said, okay, let's talk about political engineering. Let's see, with the example of Switzerland, in my case, because I'm ambassador of Switzerland, what were the elements that contributed to the construction, like if we would construct, a building. What were the elements that contribute to the construction, in this case, of my country? It doesn't come to a surprise to you that sometimes there are statements made that, yeah, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Switzerland, there are similarities, there are things. I've been here 6 months, and then sometimes I meet people that said, yeah, we would be like Switzerland, we would like to be like Switzerland, we would take some of the elements of Switzerland because there are similarities. Yes, there are. But of course, you cannot copy-paste a model. Every country has its own history, its own genesis, its own problem, challenge, advantage, and etc. And has to find a little bit the way to build it up and to continue to build. You know. But it's true. There are similarities. We will see some of them together. So I was mentioning. I think we go with the yes. We're talking about building a democratic state, of course. Not talking about something else. Democratic state with good governance, with inclusiveness, building a multi-confessional, multi-ethnic, multilingual country, Switzerland. It's difficult. It takes time, much more than other countries that doesn't have this characteristic. It takes time. And time is also something that we have to think about it. It takes some time, generation change also, to achieve certain changes, especially in a complex context. But we need to respond with a certain complex system to a complex situation. I think this is something that it's not only in the state building, generally speaking, you know, when you have a complex situation, you need to address it with a complex solution. There is no easy way or shortcut way to go around. What is the enter is good, no? Yeah. This comes to a surprise maybe to you, but I told you I'm a forestry engineer, so sometimes I like to compare also with the planning of a forest. Of course, you know, we can leave a forest to grow and then we will have something at the end. But nature will do the way. Or we can start to plan and define what will be the mature forest we want to, in order to, you know, profit, take advantage of this forest. I compare the forest with the state. Sorry for the comparison, but and I think there is where time comes in. You know, there is certain time, but there is certain planning as well. We need to start to plan maybe 20 years before, maybe 40 years before, maybe even more before, and to take into consideration time, but we need to plan in order to have something being done after this time has passed. I think this sometimes applies also in the construction of the state building. So the question is, one of the questions is, okay, should it be economy first, or should it be the political structure first? Because there are these questions. You know? You should bring a country up to a certain level of economy where then it's easier to do changes, political changes, and etc. Or should we start with the political structure first? I think it's a combination of both. And this I'm speaking also of the experience of my country. I think it's a combination of both. But of course, a certain political structure is needed in order to have an economic development. It's not the way around. The other way around, at least in our case, was not possible. The economic development and economic level also of a country like Switzerland today, it's not a cause, it's a consequence also of certain political decisions, which require political will and etc. So I think it's all about defining the process. Again, is the engineer speaking. And sorry that I take you a little bit out of this classical way to think and more in the engineering way to think, but you want an output, you need to define the process. You need to stick to the process. And I think this is a very important message into building that up. Now, here I present you with the case of my country. Multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-confessional country. As I said, some similarities with a country like Bosnia and Herzegovina, but not to do a copy-paste transposition of the system. But some similarities that are there. So we had to come up with a political engineer. I'm coming from, and I will tell you afterwards, I'm coming from the Italian part of Switzerland. That's why I speak with my hands like this. Because culturally we are more Italian in that part. But of course we have to come up with a system that makes up living together also with the three others culture of the country. I will not bore you too much with the details of the system, but just a couple of features that explain a little bit the political system of Switzerland. First, just to give you an idea about the time, you know, there are some dates here. Huh? This is 1291 is commonly referred as the foundation of Switzerland, but at that time, I mean, we are talking about more than 700 years before. I mean, every country in the world had at some point existed or had similarities with today's country, and even Switzerland of 1291 was not the Switzerland today, but it's commonly referred as, you know, we are more than 700 years old. It's not really true. You know. I think the foundation of date of Switzerland is this one, but still, you know, we're talking about more than 160 years. This was the foundation of the first constitution that defined the political engineering, the structure of Switzerland, as more or less is today, the first constitution, which was actually decided after a conflict, an internal conflict between a part that was more conservative, that wanted to keep a certain privilege, so to speak, and another part was more liberal, at that time in Europe were the liberal movement, and wanted to have another way to organize the state. The liberal part won and imposed, so to speak, or decided the first constitution, which was amended 2 times. The constitution which is based, the country today was written here, amended 2 times, and that's it. With minor change that we will see afterwards. The system is, that's where you see also some similarities, 126 and 200, 121. One country, 26 cantons, although it's a little bit, it's the second layer, the cantons in Switzerland, and the rest are all municipalities. So you have much more municipalities than in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The core element of the Swiss federalism or the Swiss structure is this one, cantons. And we will come to that after that. And there is also one of the key differences with others countries that are similar. Because in the history, these cantons were almost like sovereign states at that time. They were almost like sovereign state. And then gradually they decided, okay, we will give some sovereignty to the central power. In many cases, it's the other way around. You know, we tend to devolve the power to the local system. Now, how it's, and there you can, I think you can also see some similarity. How is regulated the federal, the different layer, the responsibility in Switzerland? The principle, the main rule, so to speak, is subsidiarity. That means everything that is not explicitly, only what is explicitly allowed and defined in the Constitution is done at the national level. So it must be explicitly said in the Constitution. Everything that is not explicitly mentioned is at the local level. So you see that at national level, foreign policy, armed force, national roads, federal tax, which is the lowest tax because the main taxes are paid at the local level, the currency are there. And this is also something that, as I was saying, you know, it was decided 100 years ago, 120 years ago. Before, it was at the local level, so they decided to give this competence a little bit higher. And then you have the cantonal level where you have basically everything else. That's where really you have the key part and the key element of the Swiss system with education, health, environment, police, culture, taxes. The main taxes are paid also at this level. You have the municipal level. This is very different according to the cantons. In some municipality, even this primary education is entirely independent, done at municipal level, in other not. And an interesting evolution is this one, the intercantonal coordination, which is a modern evolution. Now, we are not a member of the European Union, as Switzerland, as probably you know, but we have 125 bilateral agreements with the European Union because we are in the middle of Europe, so we need to have a certain, for economic, for political reasons, we need to have a good relation with our big neighbor, European Union and European member state. And that's what we had to create this mechanism of coordination because we cannot go to Brussels and speak with 26 cantons, everyone with their own opinion. You know, we had to create. You know, only the national state, the national level, is speaking with Brussels, is negotiating. But of course, there is a coordination mechanism that brings, you know, the opinion of every single canton and they try to find. Now I say the very important word in Switzerland, compromise, which satisfies everyone, which is the most difficult thing to do in politics, you know. And compromise is always very interesting because we could go on the philosophy and discussing about compromise. I've been working most of my life outside of Europe, and it's extremely interesting when you say compromise. In many cultures, it's a negative thing. You compromise, you lost. Just lost. In Switzerland, it's very positive. Culturally speaking, compromise is a positive thing. You did a compromise. You're a good guy. Yeah, you know what it's about. So it's almost now I'm getting out of the engineering. I'm on the philosophical and cultural part. But compromise for us, for the construction of Switzerland, is an extremely important word. Otherwise, wouldn't really work the system as it is. This is just an overview of the canton of Switzerland. Maybe some of you have family or friends living there and you know some of them, maybe not. But what I wanted to tell you is, with the next slide, oops, how can I get back? The arrows. Oh, this one. This one. Yes. These are the flag of the different cantons of Switzerland. And that's where it's another very important element. As a Swiss citizens, of course you are Swiss, we have a national, we have a Swiss passport and everything, but the identity lies in your canton. You would see it also in your passport, you know, even if you haven't lived in your canton, let's put Ticino, mine, but the family is originally from there, so in your passport it would state that, you know, you come from this region, you come from this municipality which is in this canton, even if you don't live there anymore. This is an extremely important identity, and how can I say, every citizen is first, I would say first, citizens of a canton. Even the municipality plays a very important role. And of course, then everyone feels Swiss. I mean, we all recognize ourselves in the country. But this regional identity is extremely important as a precondition. And that's when I say that many people say, yeah, Switzerland is a multilingual country. You're speaking many languages, so it's a system based on many languages. It's partially true. We are a multi-canton country. We are a collection of different countries. Of different cantons, a collection of different cantons. Some of them doesn't work. Yes. Oh, sorry. Well, some of them in some canton. Here's the German part. In some canton, they only speak German, and then it's required if you go to live there. I mean, this is Zurich. You go to this canton. The official language is German. Everybody speaks German. You have relation with the authority, well, you're supposed to learn German. Of course, you have 3-4 languages at the national level. But in this canton, the official language is German, and then you are supposed to learn it, because in the relation with the cantonal authorities, you would have to speak that language. There are others, like Fribourg, who are bilingual. It's a canton where 2 languages are spoken. Everything must be translated into language, because of course there are composition of 2. There are even cantons that are trilingual. This one, for instance, they have Italian, German, and Romansh, which is the only not so many people speak this language. It's a Latin language, but it's an official language. And there, everything is translated in 3 languages. You have the right to go to school in one of the 3. In one of the 3 languages. But if you live again only in Geneva, here everything is French. C'est que le français et que le français. And you will have to learn French in order to deal with the authorities of the cantons. That's why I was saying, you know, the identity and the reference to the canton is extremely important, and it decides also on which will be ultimately the language that is used. And that brings to many different, this for instance is a national product done by a national enterprise company in Switzerland. And of course you would have, the 4th language is not mentioned, but you have at least the 3, in German, in French, and in Italian, because it's sold nationwide. So by law, you need to have this. But here you have, for instance, a bilingual city, I don't remember which one is, and you have it in German and in French. You're not obliged to put the 3rd language, because this is canton-based. So you have this language applying only for this canton. Here it's a little bit the same, you know. You speak French, okay, that's a newspaper. It's like Clicks, but it's not only online, they still print this. You want the French, you take it. You want in German, you take it from this side. And this, of course, is a ski slope, which we have a lot in Switzerland. Also, again, not only nationwide, but also very important for the tourists, so we added English as well. So it defines, according to the region, it defines also what language and ultimately also what culturally is influenced. Now, this is a little bit difficult to understand. I will have to explain. It's not only about the language, it's about the culture. I was saying I'm coming from the Italian part, so we are culturally much more Italian, so to speak, Mediterranean. My good friend, Swiss German, are more close to Germany. Some would say they're more structured. We are more, yeah, in a way, Mediterranean. This is culturally based, you know. And then you know that in Switzerland we vote all the time. I will not go into details, but we have the possibility to vote. Every law that is decided on national, cantonal level, you can raise signature against, you can call for a referendum, and then you go to vote, and then people ultimately speak and say, yes, we agree, or no, we disagree. In this case, it was a vote on social, how do you say, pension insurance. So it was a vote on something social, how much you would give to the pension, to the people that take their retirement. And you have this, you know, I think the French part and the Italian part, the conception of the state also is much more, also that the state should care for their citizens. So you have this social soul much more pronounced. And the German part, or the Anglo-Saxon part, is that, you know, self-responsibility. It's less, the state should intervene a little bit less. This, in general, of course, then the people can decide on their own. But generally speaking, this is the conception of the city-state. And in Switzerland, it's extremely interesting because you could see the difference. This is the south, and this is the French part. And you can see the difference how they vote on social issues, the French and the Italian part, which are equal a little bit with the French and Italian culture. They are much more social, not responsible, but giving more importance to the social, and the German part is giving more importance to self-responsibility of the state. And this creates different result during the vote, because the culture is different. Now, as we are speaking about voting, elections are a very important topic everywhere in the world when you talk about election. Because you need to come up also with the election engineering. Some might say election law. Well, it's also a kind of an engineering, how you define where you vote. What happened in our case? In Switzerland, every city of the canton, again, the canton defines you very strongly. So every citizen, regarding of the ethnicity, religion, mother tongue, culture, etc., can be elected at cantonal and also at national level. But it's only related to the canton. So here, for instance, we have the election in the Italian-speaking canton. You have, well, this is a typical name of someone from the Italian-speaking canton, but you also have Swiss-German citizens living there, residing there. And you have also foreigners, here is Portuguese, we have a large colony of Portuguese, but also many people also from the Balkan living there that are already Swiss, and they have the right to vote and to be elected. Everyone can be elected, but only related to their country. The electoral, system is again closed, so to speak, to the canton. If I'm residing there, I cannot vote for someone else from Geneva or from Zurich. I have to vote where I reside, but I can vote for everyone. I think one might say that it's a civic aspect of the vote, it's a civic system, so to speak, but the civic aspect, the civic system is limited to the canton when one people resides. This is another example of, I told you about Fribourg. It's a bilingual canton where you speak, people speak German and French. So you have these two language and culture being represented. And again, despite the fact that you have these two different cultures living in the canton, when they vote, they will vote for their own interest. They will consider what is the best interest for the canton. Not really for the culture. There is a different sensibility, but first and foremost it will be the interest. And here you see, this is the result of some votes, where in this case, the canton of Fribourg, which is this one, voted like the French and Italian part, so the Latin part. And this is another case where the canton voted more like the German part. Because it goes on the interest, you know. Sometimes you could have allies that are totally on the other side of the country, that speaks another language, that have another culture, but you defend the same interest. It goes on, I don't know, agricultural issue, which is very common for you and for the other one. And then there is this alliance based on your interest. Now, with a complex system, so at regional level, at local level, you need to go at the national level. You need a system at national level. You always need. You cannot run a country only on a local level. I mean, you need to find how you find the check and balance, how you find a system at national level that at the same time grants this decentralization, grants the system to work, but at the same time can work, like I was saying before, you know, for foreign affairs, with the relation with other country, army, etc. So we start with the parliament. Our system in the parliament is relatively easy. We have two chambers. The first chamber of National Council, every canton sends, so one has the right to have some parliamentarian according to the person living there, the inhabitants. So the bigger is the canton, the more parliamentarian will be sitting into this chamber. And then you have another one, Council of States, upper chamber, and this is regardless of the size of the canton, everyone gets two. So you have big canton like Zurich, 1 million, 1.5 million inhabitants, they have two. Senator, this is the upper chamber, we call it senator, parliamentarian. And then you have a small canton like Appenzell, which is 25,000 people. 25,000, I mean, it's 40 times smaller, no, 50 times smaller than Zurich, and they also have two. And this is the check and balance that grants the system to work, because any decision here must be matched here, and vice versa. So this decision to have the same amount of parliamentarian granted for every canton gives also the smallest canton, or the minorities, or the mountain region county, which are also minorities and peripheral, a good influence, because everything must be agreed. And when everything must be agreed between, well, let's do it a little bit simple, the powerful city might be, or group, and the other one, then you found probably a compromise, probably something in between. They want 100, they want 100, they want 10, and then probably you find that 60, and then you have a solution. And that is a bit what happened since many years. It took time to come there, but that happened what's happened in Switzerland since many years, that this compromise is relatively, sorry about the word, but it's relatively boring, you know. It's not, we will do this. It's a solution that, you know, when you are in the middle with a solution, it's not so, sometimes not so catchy, not so interesting also. It cannot be exploited also by the media, for instance. You know, it's a system that works, and it's, yeah, okay, it's a decision, it's a compromise. But that is, I think, at the core of this stability, which contradicts Switzerland, because how many times you hear about Swiss decision, or you know, Swiss law that has been passed, or a Swiss vote, or do you know the Swiss president? I don't even know the Swiss president, so how do you know the Swiss president? How many times you hear about that? Not much. Why? That's what I was saying. You know? And why I was saying I don't know the Swiss president, of course I know who the Swiss president is, but because this is the government of Switzerland, which is 7, now you have 8 because he's the guy who is running the whole administration, but seven ministers, only 7. They are not elected by the people, they are elected by the parliament, by the 2 chambers of the parliament. They must be representing the different area of Switzerland, the culture of Switzerland, but it's not fixed in the law. Used to be fixed in the law, interesting, used to be fixed in the law, it was changed, now it's a suggestion, so to speak, so that the cultural part of Switzerland are equally represented. But what gives the system the whole stability is that you have 2 ministers for the first 3 parties, political parties, when you have election on national level, the first three parties get each 2 ministers, and the fourth party get 1 minister. And one of these person, once in a year, is every year is president. So that's why I say nobody knows who is the president, because they keep changing, and the president doesn't really have much more power than the other one. The only power he or she has is to direct or to coordinate the meeting or the Council of Ministers, and to do the statement during the national day on the 1st of August. But that's it. Currently, the president, that's she. She's the president. Now, are there similarities between Switzerland and Bosnia and Herzegovina? But I would ask you, because I gave a lot of elements there, and I think some of them you might have said, "Oh no, my goodness, this what is that? I don't understand. It's just crazy." And some of them, I'm sure that you said, "Yeah, interesting. I could see some points." Maybe you can answer this question. The flag is not similar anyway, because the flag of Switzerland is the only country in the world that has a square flag. So we do not share the similarities with any other country in the world. Well, let me propose a couple. We already discussed a little bit that. I don't know if you agree. That's where I see that there are some similarities in the multicultural, multi-religious. Montenegro also. I've been here 6 months now, and I could see that there are a lot of very beautiful spots here, driving into the mountain, hiking into the mountain, and I definitely is gonna visit this now that the spring and summer is coming. Well, we don't have the sea. You have to see. The distinct climate zone, the diversity, also the close tie with the neighbor countries. We are the foundation of Switzerland and the construction of Switzerland has had and still has a lot of ties with our neighbor, because at the end of the day, we are, a couple of years ago, there was an exhibition, cultural exhibition, and then an artist set up the Swiss pavilion, where we present, every country of the world would present its main feature. And the title of the Swiss pavilion was "Switzerland do not exist." Switzerland doesn't exist. But it was, of course, a kind of a joke in saying, yeah, we are a creation of different cultural part of 3 different neighbors that stick together based on other things, not based on the language, not based on the religion, based on other things. And then we started to, again, build and construct and find a political engineering. And I think I'm suggesting a couple of things that could make them, our both country even more similar. One is just what I mentioned. I mean, diversity. I see that Bosnia and Herzegovina has the diversity and has multiple links with several, not only country, but influence, sphere, and religion and others. So the diversity could be turned into an advantage. When you are a diverse country and you can use it as an advantage, then you have much more links than a country that has only one relation or one links. And then the compromise. I was talking about the compromise, which is something that, again, in my country is something very positive, but it's part of a construction of a long political culture. It's not something that you can buy in Consum or somewhere. I mean, this is something that you start even at primary school probably to discuss, and then to practice, and then ultimately to come up with the result. So that's again a reminder of how to reach certain structure. But there is a process to be defined, there is time, and ultimately there is the output. And then allow me to finish with, as a forestry engineer, to make a comparison also with with the forest, because I know that, again, you can leave it to the nature and they will do a good work, but if you want to really have a result that is really useful and sustainable, then you have to plan several interventions. And the intervention must be well thought, must not be too radical, but must be done also and not just waiting a long time without doing anything. This is a comparison that you would excuse if I make a comparison taken with the environment or with nature. But this is also what the diplomats do, you know. Sometimes they don't talk directly about the topic, but they turn around. And the message, I hope, it came anyway. So I will stop here.